Y'all, I'm geeked right now. I'm geeked. You see, I got the headphones on, but I don't know if you can tell whether or not, but these are PS5 headphones, and they happen to work for my podcast recording microphone as well. So this is amazing. It's a day. um, I had a few different episode titles with topics that I wanted to speak to, but I'm feeling more compelled to speak to some of my own experiences that I've had recently. But for starters, today I made the investment. I bought the PS5. It's crazy how it happened, y'all. So a year ago, it was my birthday actually, my birthday weekend. My ex-girlfriend had sent me what was a PS5 box to my new place. And I got the PS5 box and I opened it up and there was nothing in there that was even close to a PS5. There were a bunch of like little things from our relationship. I don't know what the intention was behind it, but different things that were symbolic of our relationship. And then a journal that said, and I use a journal too because I don't like wasting stuff, so I didn't waste paper. But the journal had on there, she wrote little sticky notes on different things. And with this one, it was like, since you talk to yourself so much, or you like talking about yourself so much, why don't you write? I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but something implying journaling and talking about myself so much. So it worked out. But success is the best revenge. Let's just say that. I don't feel an urge to hit her up and let her know, like, hey, I got a PS5 for real, and send her the box. Also, I don't have any way of contacting her. Like, if I wanted to find her, I'd have to jump through way too many hoops. But it was real nice. Like, I had a moment where I was plugging it in, and I just, like, kind of got a little bit emotional. And the reason being, not that I could afford a PS5. I couldn't afford a PS5. But just the reason being because of what it represents to me. It represented something that for so long felt unattainable. It felt like I didn't deserve it. It felt like it was a luxury. And here I am now. Oh, by the way, using the headphones that I bought with it in order to record my podcast microphone. So this is just further validation for me about how important it is to take care of myself, as well as how far I've come. I decided to not reach out to my therapist again, at least right now, until I can afford to pay him full price for his sessions. He's expensive, but he'd been working with me for the last 3 years, and I don't feel right if I continue to, have him negotiate his rates so low for me. And also, I'm able to implement a lot of what I've learned from therapy. And there have been so many validating experiences throughout the therapy sessions. And I want to say, from talking about my issue with my dad of not letting myself get excited about things and fear of disappointment, as well as with my mom and just feeling like her emotional boyfriend, that even over the last 3 years, I would bring situations to my therapist that really validated that belief. And something that I've realized is that the more time that I spend in therapy, the more time that I spend looking up content and trying to undo all of the knots that have been created from me living in the way that I have, in a way that was only congruent with these beliefs that no longer serve me, I'm finding that the detangling of the knot is going to be challenging my belief systems with behavior change. And I've had probably a dozen experiences over the last few days alone that served as reminders of me still acting out of the beliefs that I have about my dad and about my mom. And so I've done all this healing, so to speak. I've done all this self-reflection, but the self-reflection really doesn't mean anything if you're not willing to put it into action. So with my dad, for instance, I've decided that I'm not going to get excited about things until after they happen. So that kind of explains my feeling about the PlayStation 5 and how when I got that, and it wasn't the purchasing, it wasn't the fact that two people came in afterwards asking about buying a PS5 and I got the last one, or someone on the phone calling in to see if they had one and deciding that they wanted one this day in this moment. Those weren't the validating moments for me that I got excited. It was when I was here and I was plugging it in, and then it was just like, wow, I did this. This is happening. This happened. And that's really been how I decided to move forward, based on that issue that I have. And then with my mom, what I notice is that it continues to come up, especially in my relationships and the relationships that I potentially have, like in dating. Let me just call it what it is. The issue being that I find myself, I use this pizza analogy, so bear with me because after a certain point it just doesn't make sense. So in various dating scenarios, situationships, relationships, whatever you want to call them, I find myself like looking for toppings and ingredients in a person because, and this ties into my dad issue, you can't let me down if I come to you for pepperoni, if I come to you for cheese, if I come for you for crust, right? And you are unable to provide those things. So while I want for myself an entire pizza, what I'm going for is, oh, okay, I know that I'll be able to get this ingredient from this person until they decide to cut me off from the ingredient, or until I decide that I want more, and it's like, well, I've already set the expectation that this is all you're capable of providing. So I'm just going to continue to get various toppings and ingredients from various places rather than attempting to get an entire pizza. Because if I do invest that much into a person and I finally do say, hey, I want this, I want everything on my pizza, and this is what the relationship becomes, then I not only run the risk of not getting it, I run the risk of not realizing that I'm not getting it. Like maybe, going into it and taking a few bites, you're like, oh man, this pizza's good. And then you realize, hold on, this pizza has mushrooms on it. I don't want any mushrooms. Ew, spit it out. Or I thought I was getting a meat lover's pizza and it's vegan. Like, you telling me this is fake meat? This is what I mean by the analogy stretching too far. It's a big reach, but what it really symbolizes for me is that there is an inherent fear, not of me asking for what I want, but me getting what it is that I want. Because I've been in so many situations where I've been able to ask for what I want and I've gotten it, but it's more of like I'm more intimidated to ask from a partner, a potential partner, something more than what the minimal expectation is, because they can disappoint me and because I can be in a situation where I can get exactly what it is that I want. So there's not only this fear of failure, there's this fear of actually achieving and then being disappointed. And I mentioned this, I haven't mentioned this here, but there was an experience I had with someone where, if you've been listening long enough, you know that I have genital herpes. And this was someone that I disclosed my herpes status to, and they were okay with it. We hooked up and then went to bed, woke up, we hooked up again. And then probably like 4 hours later, this person was just like, I don't want to do this because I'm scared of getting herpes. I don't want to get herpes. And it was more of a fall down because I was like riding a high. I was like, yay, this is great. This is going to be fantastic in my mind because this person did a lot for me in terms of what I was looking for that I hadn't had access to. So I unexpectedly got pizza. I was really thrilled about the pizza and I got a taste of it. I was eating slices off of it throughout the entirety of our connection that we had. And then all of a sudden it was like, nah, Courtney, you can't have no more pizza. And the excitement and the expectation that I created for myself was so high that when the rejection did finally come, I think that probably hurt exponentially more than what it would have felt like if I were just rejected initially. So it was like there was like a twisting, gut-wrenching pain there, emotionally, I would say. But you get your heart broken and you bounce back 10 times harder if you do the right thing with that energy. Um, you can go and mope about it, cry about it, or you can talk to somebody, process it, figure out the last time you felt that way, the first time you felt that way, understand the emotion, and then decide how you want to feel. And then do what you have to do in order to feel what you want to feel with that energy. Because the intensity of an emotion, it has something with it, whether it's fear or excitement, right? You can take whatever the intensity of the emotion is, that whether it's from fear or excitement, and you can move forward with it. I mentioned this, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and then forward response. And to me, it's taking the energy and consciously deciding what you want to do next, and then go with that action. That course of action is what you're deciding to move forward with. So I give this background because I know that I tend to remain objective when I'm interviewing people, or I try and keep my opinions out of things, and I save my personal experience for personal conversations. But I think that this is relevant here, especially if I want this to be really useful self-help, because maybe there's something in my experience that connects with you that you'll be able to implement for yourself, and that'll make you a better person. That'll make you get more in line with what it is that you want. And the more I do this, like, the more I feel that there's an alignment for what it is that I want by being thankful and expressing gratitude and really reflecting on what I have. And it took me a while to realize, like, I know that I have keep in mind there's a time skip between these podcast episodes here on Self, because I recorded in 2021, the first half of 2021, and then I decided to go full time into something positive for positive people and invited people over there, and then decided to come back to this because a lot of the topics and conversations that I want to have weren't a fit on something positive for positive people. I can make them a fit, but I don't want to force STIs into the conversation in order to get my point across or to make it be on brand. So for this, it's I, me. It's not what sometimes we can feel. No, it's I and me. It's my experience that I am sharing with you all, so that you can take whatever it is that you need from it and then apply it for yourselves. So going back to the point that I was making an attempt to make, I realized that all the work that I've been doing in therapy has been, it's like feel good work to me. Like, you feel good about having your therapy session. You feel good when you get off the phone, and then you might be drained a little bit. You may journal and you're like, wow, I realized this. But it doesn't really mean anything if you're not doing anything about it. For me, I have a really big problem with people flaking on me. And I know that that stems from, like, when I was younger. I remember my mom being on the phone. And mind you, my mom was pregnant with me at 17 years old. So at times when I would want, I don't know, I guess I just wanted my identity validated as her son. Maybe I wanted a hug. Maybe I just wanted to be up under my mom. And I remember her being on the phone sometimes, being like, get out of here, I'm on the phone. And overhearing some of those phone conversations, I think that what I learned was that there was more of a prioritization of a sexual relationship, or a relationship that had that component to it, than there was anything else, so in learning that, I think that I've come in contact with women who would more so prioritize, like, and this all goes together, so bear with me as I try to explain it, with women who prioritize the sexual relationships that they have with their partners, or just somebody, right? Whereas I would feel like, oh, this is my person to watch this show with. This is my person to go to the hot tub with. This is my person to go out to eat with. This is my person to do X thing with. And there's a lot of talk on the internet, if you look for it, that it says, like, men and women can't be friends. And I agree and I don't agree with that. Typically because I know historically, like, I'm 34 now, but in my 20s, I think that I was mostly only friends with women because of the hope of potentially sleeping with them. Now, being older, I think I can see it a little more clearly in other people. But that kind of holds true because, and this is me talking about my experience, I think that it holds true because I think that I've tried to get not necessarily sex, but what comes with sex and what it could represent for me based on how I've processed, what that is and what that means. Wow, I am not recording any of the video. All right, this looks like this is going to be audio only. I did everything but press record. But I'm really making points here, so I'm going to just continue to drive it home. What I mean is, so sex is representative. What does sex represent for me? I think that it represents connectedness. I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and they were like, well, what did you want from your mom that you couldn't get from your mom? And I was like, sex ain't the right thing to say here. That's not it. But what it was probably that sense of closeness, that sense of intimacy, that sense of connection. And I think that I invite women to provide that thing to me that my mom didn't give me when I wanted it all the time, which was that sense of closeness and intimacy. So the way that I would ask would be in small ways. It would be, hey, do you want to go do this activity, like the hot tub or the gym, or come to a yoga class? Like, I do these activities, or come with me to Comic-Con, or this type of party, or this just outing, or even to a movie. So what I would do is make these small asks so that they were almost non-rejectable in a way. And if they were rejected, then what that would mean was like almost nothing in a sense, because it's like, oh, okay, well, I was still going to do this thing anyway, so it's no harm, no foul. But if there was an acceptance to it, it was like, yes, I get this intimacy, this connection that I'm hoping for, that I've really only been able to get through sex, and maybe I'm afraid to ask for just sex. And this was something that my therapist and I talked about as well. He was like, well, if you got a need and you want to get that need met, why can't you just ask for what it is that you need? And trying to make sense of it, I think that he put it a lot more simple, like so simple that it went over my head, because I really have been doing all of this, like watching videos, reading articles, following people on social media to try and better understand how to get what it is that I want, or understand myself to know what it is that I really want. That the simple way of putting that was just so far removed from me. And I think that having some experiences to pull from and have to like decide for myself, okay, well, how do I want to navigate these? What do I want to do about this? Like, now having to think about this and decide what I want to do, this really changes things for me, because now that I know that my attempts to hang out are like really small asks that don't hurt too much if rejected, those things still pile up. Like, while they may not hurt as bad in the moment, they still pile up. So I can make one big ask, which, let's say it's sex. Like, sex is the connecting thing, the big connecting thing that I won't, or have chosen not to ask for, or I'm scared to ask for from a woman. So going to safer places and just asking for quality time, for intimacy expressed in that way, is a lot less of a burden. It's a lot harder to say no to that, I guess. And again, this is all stuff that's processing for me. So it's coming out pretty raw, like saying it out loud, especially here. But again, this is how it works. Like, this is how we process things. This is how we decide to move forward. This is how we change behavior. This is how we change thought patterns, habits, and beliefs. Like, we gotta implement shit. So this has always been a problem for me. I'll schedule a podcast recording with someone, for example, and I know that people tend to get flaky or fall off later, so I want to do it as soon as possible, right? So I tell people all the time, hey, how soon can you get on the call? How soon can we jump on the phone? How soon can you record? Because more often than not, what happens is, oh, let's do next week, turns into, oh, I'm sick. Oh, I had this thing come up. Oh, no contact at all. Whereas right away, it has to, like, if it gets done right away, it's great. But more often than not, it doesn't, and it gets delayed and it gets pushed back. And I don't think that demonstrates the value of my time. I think that being so available and accessible, and like such a yes person right then, right now, without anyone having to earn that yes, I think makes people feel that they can more easily like turn me down in a way or decline me for things. Taking it back to my relationship with my mom, like I think this was what highlighted it for me, because she and I were having we talked, she's been like a little bit distant, and my mom and I, we basically grew up together, so we have a connection to where we know when something's wrong with the other person. So I finally got to talk to her. She got to tell me a little bit about what was going on with her, and then I decided to ask her about this specific thing, and when I did, she didn't have anything for me. And that was like a aha moment for me of like, okay, like you were able to give me your emotional dump, and then when I just have a question about like something that you as my mother would probably have a lot more insight about, there wasn't anything there, and that hurt. And the pain of that was just like a reminder, and I think it unraveled a lot of other things, between having a couple of podcast guests cancel, between having a call with someone and letting them know, hey, I'm going to call you in 2 hours, and for it being okay with them, and then I called him and then he didn't call me back, and then having a friend like essentially reschedule a hangout, and then come to find out that that hangout was rescheduled under the guise of like mental health stuff, but then for them to tell me, oh, I had a really great conversation with a potential partner, it was like reiterating that that sexual relationship takes precedence over the intimacy that I believe that we had through our mutual interests and quality time that we spent together. And what else? There's a few more, but I don't want to have to get too specific. I hope that these are vague enough for you to be able to see your own potential experience in this, so that you can decide how you want to navigate it. But for me, I spoke to some of my friends about it, and some of what it really does boil down to is perhaps poor expectation setting. The quality of my yes seems really poor because I am so available. Now, mind you, I'm on everybody else's schedule. I run something positive for positive people, and with that, it's a lot of openness for me to create my own schedule outside of my part-time work at the universities that I work at. Like, I give people, a little bit of a window. But if somebody reaches out and they're like, oh my God, like I have this question, I don't know if you'll reply. And I'm like, all right, can you talk now? It just happens to be a good time. Like, I think that the quality of that is poor. And I've transferred that into my relationships or my connections, friendships, relationships, and being seemingly so available I think I mentioned this, like the more unavailable you are, the more attractive a person is. It's like the value of their time, their energy, their resource. Shout out to Coach Greg Adams for meat, the quality of your meat. Money, energy, attention, and time. The quality goes up, the less available it is to a quantity of people. Let me say it again. The quality of your money, energy, attention, time increases with how limited the availability of it is to a quantity of people, right? So what this looks like for me now is, unfortunately, I got to start saying no, even when I don't really care to say no, but I'm not going to like intentionally be an asshole about that, right? So what my behavior change here is going to be is that I'm going to make more plans for myself. I'm planning to work from this time to this time. I'm going to be doing this thing from this time to this time. I got friend time scheduled. I got calls with my family scheduled. Like, make these kinds of things more of a priority to fill that space and not be so malleable with it. And I hate that I have to do this because I like being able to just be transparent about what my availability is. But for me, now seeing that the quality of my yes goes up the more I say no, I can't unsee that now, because like that's the reality. And like playing around with that and practicing it, that it is what it is, and that works. and people are more excited and enthusiastic about hanging out and getting together, and they more so appreciate that time. But I realized that, like, the reason that I've been, I don't want to say hurt, yeah, that's what it is, disappointed, had my feelings hurt, has been from allowing myself to feel this way by not, not only increasing the quality of my, yes, of my meat, my money, energy, attention, time, but also because perhaps I'm not even being intentional in my ask. I mentioned the pizza toppings or whatever. Like, if I go to you and I ask you for less than what I actually want from you, so being afraid of asking for a sexual relationship, right? Because that's the quality of intimacy that I want. If I'm asking for breadcrumbs, little pizza crust here and there, little pepperoni or bacon on the side, or a certain type of cheese or crust, right? The sauce to be like this. If I'm only asking for 1/9 of what it is that I really want, then how, like, I'm settling I'm settling myself, first off, but I'm also devaluing what I allow myself to receive. So therefore, I won't even be able to enjoy or appreciate a pizza if the opportunity to eat pizza is right there in front of me, because I won't know how to respond to it. I'll be like, oh no, this is too much. This is too much. I couldn't possibly ask for this. I couldn't possibly eat all that. And I will most likely consciously push that away, but I'll be like, ooh, look at that pepperoni over there. Ooh, damn, look at them cheese shreds. Yeah, girl, let me get some of them. Let me get some of that cheese shred. Because that's so much easier than to just be like, hey, I see you over there looking all fresh, looking all hot and ready like a Little Caesars. Girl, come over here, get in my mouth, right? That's it. I bet that even sounds smooth, like saying out loud to somebody, because of the confidence behind it, the energy behind it, the certainty in my voice behind it, right? Even when asking for breadcrumbs or less than what I really want, you'll be like, oh, hey, you wanna? This is an over exaggeration. It's, hey, you want to come to the hot tub? Like, I'm asking you to come to the hot tub because I'm scared to ask you for a hookup or for actual intimacy, or if I actually just need physical touch or contact or just quality time. Like, I'm not really asking for what I want. And I don't know how else I do that, but I'm using particularly sex and the platonic relationships that I have, going back to the whole men and women can't be friends thing, that you'll probably see floating around on the internet. I'm really leaning towards agreeing with that. As objective again as I try to be, like, leaning in towards that, because what is it that I get out of a platonic relationship with people, right? So let's start there. Let's go as wide as platonic relationships. I've had this come up in therapy as well. I don't like feeling used. However, I feel most used in my platonic relationships. I allow myself to be emotionally available, vulnerable, and create that emotional safety and support for people through my business. So people get that infinitely. I've noticed that there have been people from there who trickle into the friend category or like the acquaintance category and still take in that way without having to go through the business part of it, without going through the donating process or talking about spending any money or how much time's going into this or any types of boundaries and restrictions. And that's my fault because I allowed it to happen. And then I also notice that there are times where the friendships, like, I will offer that emotional support and availability, and that kind of sets the standard for what the friendship is. And it's really that upfront intention setting and behavior that comes on at the beginning. That's what people latch on to. People will latch on to that and decide, oh, this is the nature of the relationship, the friendship. I get this money, energy, attention, time without there being any reciprocity. And so when I look at using people, it's been challenging for me to ask for sex because that feels like I'm using people. So, hey, I want this thing from you. I don't want this thing with you. I want it from you. And it's like it's happening for me exclusively. So it feels a little bit bad for me to take in that way because it feels like using people, but I'm enabling people to use me in that sense too, without the reciprocity, without the exchange. I can't tell you how many people like come to me, get what they need, and then I don't hear from them again. Or if like I would like to receive from them what I've given to them, and they're nowhere to be found, or they're slow to respond to text, or they're too busy, or they can't handle it. And that's happened enough times for me to be able to point out the fact that it's a pattern, and it's a pattern that I have trained people on being able to I've trained people to accommodate for this pattern, so to speak. So it's like, oh, well, this is my relationship with Courtney. This is what it is. And I gotta undo that shit. So I guess Self Season 2 is going to be more about the implementation of behavior change, pattern breaking, and things like that, more so than just the self-reflective piece and self-education, because you can't get in this loophole of understanding or hearing people say, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do, this is what people are doing to you, this is why people are doing it to you, here's how they do it to you. And then you'll look up 6 months from now and you still getting the same kind of outcomes that you've been trying to not get anymore. And the only thing that you got is some knowledge from some people from YouTube, some podcasts that you might have listened to. And I listen to a lot, and I keep finding new people. And as I quote them, I'll definitely be shouting them out. But I realize now that these little asks are a part of something called nice guy syndrome. I read the book No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover, not Donald Glover. That's Childish Gambino. Robert Glover. And that pattern, I read this book a couple of times over the last like 10-ish years. Probably 8 years is more accurate, because I remember I found it when I was living in Houston and I became single again. So the nice guy syndrome of, oh, well, I'm just going to only ask for this little thing here. And, if they say no, oh, it's cool, no harm, no foul. But if they say yeah, then yay, I got the bare minimum. And I've trained myself to ask for and accept the bare minimum. And how often do I do that with my nonprofit, my business, right? Even with the yoga classes that I was teaching, I was like, 30 minutes for $5, and I'd get 1 to 3 people who come, and one of those people would always pay double too. And I really, really appreciate her for that, because without her saying it, she was like, hey, Courtney, you're worth more than that. I value you significantly more than that. What I get out of your yoga classes is significantly more than that. And I didn't ask for that. And so that kind of taught me that I am someone who is worthy of receiving. I am capable of receiving. And not only that, but when I am giving so freely in the places, the environments that I feel aligned to give, it's reciprocated. It's reciprocated, and I think it's exaggerated. It's reciprocated and exaggerated when it's in the right place, when it's with the right people. So I want to change this behavior. And the way that I'm going to change this behavior is I'm going to put more of things for Courtney in the calendar. I'm going to put in my calendar, I'm playing video games from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm working from noon to 4 p.m. I'm going to be going to the gym from this time to that time. I started going to high yoga classes at the studio up the street. I'm going to be blocking off time for that. Ain't no more like answering the phone every time somebody call. And it's not going to be ingenuine. Obviously emergencies, those happen, but I got to stop making myself so accessible and available. And I think that that's why I'm not getting the outcomes that I want, because I do that. I minimize and reduce my expectations significantly, even though, in 2021, I was saying, I want everything. I was saying, set your standards so that you don't have expectations. And I've set my standards to this low level. Like, it's so low that almost anybody can break through it. And if anybody can break through it, then anyone can set me up to feel disappointed. how how wild is that? The bar that I set is so low that I still end up disappointed, and I'm enabling people to disappoint me. So while I've on one hand resolved my daddy issue, um, and resolved my mom issue, it's on me to implement the things that have to be done in order for me to really get rid of that. Like, I gotta stop. I gotta stop enabling myself to feel bad by allowing people to treat me the way that they do. And that's gonna come with the realizations of some very uncomfortable realities that I live in. And, I'll make like these real comments. It's so interesting interacting with people on the internet versus interacting with people in real life, because people in real life are not the same as they are on the internet. You'll make a statement on the internet and people will respond the way that they want for others to see that they responded. But when you do that shit with a real person and you have a conversation with them of like, something that might be considered misogynistic or sexist or racist or whatever ism there is, like, they'll laugh and be like, you're right. Like, even the words themselves, misogynist, racist, sexist, the ones that are being thrown out there for making an objectively accurate, logical comment or generalization or observation, you can be called one of these words as a way of not continuing to engage in conversation about why what you said is accurate or why it's true, right? But the word being thrown at you, the label, just shuts down the argument, the disagreement, the conflict, and that's it. Like, there's no engagement. But you do that in person and it's like, oh, okay, well, you can either get up and leave or we can engage in dialogue about this. And, when people throw words at me like that, I'm like, well, what does that mean? What do you mean? Can you give me an example? I had this conversation about privilege with someone, and talking to them in person about it was so different than talking to other people on the internet about it or reading on the internet about it, because you're able to engage, you're able to exchange experiences and knowledge. And I think that that's really how we grow as people. But we got to be willing to do that. We got to be willing to have hard conversations. We got to be willing to challenge people. We have to be willing to engage in conflict. Because if we don't, we stagnate. We begin to suffer. We begin to really struggle more than we actually need to. And so I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to struggle. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to fight for. I don't want to fight for the bare minimum. I heard this quote from Mr. Lucario. I'll quote him. He said, "People give dogs bones. Dogs don't like bones. Dogs like meat. And there's typically meat on the bones. So it's like they settle for bones, but what they want is meat." And that really hit home. The context of it, I believe, was he's a dating coach. So in regards to dating, it's that people like what they like, but they will settle. And this was specifically about women, I believe. Like, women, I know I'm butchering the shit out of this, but how women, men think women like men with money, but they like men with substance, but will settle for a man who has money or a thing that they gravitate towards. But I think it was just money. So like the meat would be the equivalent to having substance, having things going on with your life and having a sense of purpose and like doing stuff for yourself and being a man of significance, of importance, of value, rather than, and what they would do is, if they can't get that, then it'll just be, all right, well, I'll settle for the bones. The bones will be just finding a man with money. Plenty of men with money are out there. You can get one of those. But like that really hit me because, I mean, that's what I'm doing. Shit, I'm settling for the bones of just some fucking presence, like some time, like the bare minimum of experience to have just shared with somebody. And this shit comes from a deeply rooted childhood issue. And it's one that I'm consciously aware of as an adult. It's one that I've talked to my mother about. I'll talk to my father about the one that I have with him. But there's not been any change. I haven't changed anything. So I know for myself that the changes that need to be made are as follows. For one, I'm filling my schedule up with more Courtney stuff. So there will be significantly more Courtney time. There will be more work time for something positive for positive people dedicated to it. Like I can't just be on other people's schedule when they want to record podcasts. Podcast recordings will take place between X time and X time on X date. If you can fit into that, then we can make it happen. If you can't, then we can't record. Like I'm gonna record a podcast at that time, that day. But if you as a guest can't make that work, then I can't do that. Like I had someone ask me 2 years ago, we recorded, and he asked me recently to remove the episode, and that said that he wanted to do it over, and I just was like, dude, that's not. I couldn't put my finger on it right away, but to me that felt like another example. Yeah, this was another one of those things that happened. It just felt like it felt very disrespectful to the time, to my meat. Like while money wise, nothing was spent on the podcast episode, but energetically and attentiveness, my attention and my time. Again, shout out to Coach Greg Adams. My money, energy, attention, time went into that. And for somebody to think that, they can just hit me up like, oh, you ain't doing shit, we gonna re-record this episode, like that there's a lot that goes into that. And who's to say that even after this recording, this re-recording, which I don't do re-recordings, even after that, like you wouldn't be satisfied with that. And I've had experiences where I've gone and I've re-recorded with somebody 3 different times. So it goes from what should be about an hour and 15 minutes of time to record, interview, and then be done with it, and then go on to edit it. Let's say it's an hour of editing per 15 minutes of episode. So each one's usually an hour. So that's 4 hours of editing. And then we also got the promotion, like writing the content around it, making the social media posts, creating the episode descriptions, and distributing it. Like all of these things take energy, they take attention, they take time. And like I gotta be go, go, go. I have to continue to move forward. I can't keep backtracking for shit. I just can't. Like that's not. I cannot do that. And I make mistakes. I know I do, and I backtrack and I fix those mistakes. But the moving forward now, I can't unsee how the dozens of times, the now dozen times that I can recall just over the last week alone of just having my minimum standards just like not respected. I don't want to say disrespected. I'm going to say not respected. And not reciprocated. They weren't respected. They weren't reciprocated. And again, it's my fault because I trained people on how to treat me. So now I have to untrain them, hit a reset button. And it's not just training people, it's training myself to be deliberate and intentional with my initial approach. So like I ain't finna just like clean house with all my friends and everything. Like, oh, that's it, reset button. Now I'm only going to approach people that I want something from, and I want a lot from them. So I'm going to make the biggest, most ridiculous fucking ask. I'm sure that's an exercise somewhere where you do that to get practice being told no, but that's not what this is going to be. It's more about me saying more yeses to myself so that the yeses that include other people, when I'm not saying no to other people in those experiences. Like, I got this PS5 now. It's going to be hard to get me out this house. I just dropped that $800. It's going to be hard to get me to leave this house. And when I'm here, like, I'm finna be working. And then when I got my downtime, I'm not finna want to go out and go partying and spend money. Like, I might go to karaoke. I just discovered that I really like karaoke bars. Going out to eat, that doesn't appeal to me as much anymore. When I'm home, I want to cook. I like cooking. I'm enjoying it. I made my first New York strip sirloin yesterday, and it was a pound-ish. And I realized like a pound of steak is a lot. So I was very proud of myself for only eating half of that thing. I made me a air fried sweet potato, and I made like this some type of power greens salad or some shit. Like I'm doing it. Like I'm out here in the house. I'm out here in the house, and yeah, I have to implement these things. Therapy has been super useful. Therapy has been helpful. Therapy's taught me a lot. Therapy got me through the pandemic. Therapy has me with my sanity. And I give my therapist credit for that. And I want to go back when I can pay this man what he's worth. And I'm going to get there because the way that I'm talking about navigating my relationships with people, it's the same shit that I do in business. I don't ask for what I'm worth. I don't ask for big donations. I don't ask people to pay me a lot of money for these speaking engagements. I hit them with that. Oh well, it's a nonprofit, so whatever you can donate. And no, I'm laughing because it's true. You know, once you have these realizations, you can't do nothing but laugh. You gotta laugh to keep yourself from crying sometimes. But the reality is that behavior changes are necessary. Like it's not, I cannot afford now at 34 years old to be just to settle for less. And then I'm saying this out loud to hold myself accountable. We go back to the MEAT analogy, money or MEAT acronym, money, energy, attention, time. I'm putting all of these things into getting the bare minimum ask of other people. And sometimes it's a no. And then the few times it's a yes. Like I'm still losing. If I go forward and I put my meat into something positive for positive people. Wow, that sounds terrible. I put my money, energy, attention, and time into something positive for positive people. Last year, full time, I raised $30,500. $30,500 this year. Starting out, I just got a check from one of my board members, Dr. Evelyn Molina Dacker. I'm so grateful to her for making this donation, and I hate that it's under the circumstances that it's under, but her mother passed away, and her family has this. They have this. It's called the Love and Action Fund, and this is money that has been going out to various nonprofits that they support and believe in. And she made a donation of $50,000, and this is the second and a half week of January, and I done already crushed last year's fundraising. The money that we raised last year, and it feels so fucking good to just know that I am supported in that way, and this feels so validating. Like I haven't asked her for anything. It just happened. Like I asked her to be on my board, which to me, I felt like that was a huge ask. Like asking the people who sit on my board to be board members for me, I felt like that was a big ask. And I'm getting different, things from different people and different responses to different things. Like I'm very, very supported, but I have to continue like even more to understand the value of putting my MEAT, money, energy, attention, time into something positive, because I decided to commit to that full time, and that's a big fucking deal. I still don't pay myself from the nonprofit organization, but like now all of this money's coming in, all of these opportunities are coming in, and I need to be able to invest that in my relationships the same way, because I'm probably downplaying in something positive in my business. I'm probably downplaying myself even in that space. Whereas it needs to be the other way around. I'm doing all this big stuff in the organization, but when it comes to my personal life and relationships, I'm not. So I gotta make these changes, and it's serious. This is my passion. This is what I'm here for. If it's my purpose, then I need to treat it as such, and I gotta do this everywhere. So all that said, like I don't know what you need to hear from this or what you need to get out of this, but I had the potato is still a potato episode that seems very similar to what this title is going to be. Are you asking for pizza, or are you asking for pizza ingredients? And that this just goes to your raising of your standards, so that understand the rejection. It's still rejection. Even if it's a bunch of little rejections, even the acceptance of a small ask is a form of rejection. It's a form of self-rejection. And the reason that I say that a little ask being accepted is a form of self-rejection is because you still are missing out on getting the thing that you want and settling for something significantly less than that. And that's what I've been doing. So now that I realize that, now that I see that, it's going to be some uncomfortable conversations with people. But more importantly, like, it's going to increase the value of my yes. But I know that I have to practice. I got to practice utilizing my no's in order to increase the value of my yes. So there we have it. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode of Self. Please like, rate, review, share, subscribe to this podcast. If you found anything valuable from it, let me know. Reach out to me. You can message me. You can post and tag me in the story. I'm Courtney Brame _ on social media. That's COURTNEY BRAME _ tag me in whatever it is that you post. Leave that review, please. And yeah, there was one more thing. Oh, journal prompt. So the journal prompt here was, for me to have gotten to this point, was just simply, why am I getting these outcomes? Why is it so easy for people to bail on me? Why is it so easy for people to flake on me? And this is just something that I'm experiencing. What is it that I want that I'm not getting? These were the types of questions that I asked and that came up throughout the process. So I invite you to utilize these journal prompts, and I invite you to change your behavior as well. I hope this helps. Thank you.